following show may shock, disturb, and offend some viewers. The opinions, theories, and facts shared on this podcast are not widely accepted by the brainwashed masses, especially those who find dark humor offensive. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood. The Unabomber blowing up. Waco, Texas, and Heaven's Gates. Aliens modified, meant for mapes. JFK shot in the head by the CIA. Bigfoot and the Mothman. Son of Sam talking to dogs again. Witches, ghosts, and goblins. Mysterious noise and hauntings. Dark arts in the skull and bones. Most celebrities are probably cloned. So if you're feeling all alone, crack a beer and get stoned. I welcome you to the podcast Strange Brew. We're here to entertain you. We're here to entertain you.
It's about to get strange.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Welcome back. I'm your host, Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson, the Raptilian, and we are here again for another episode of Strange Brew Podcast with a new special guest. Sir, can you introduce yourself and then tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Tom. My name is M.D Selig, and I'm an author of a new novel that's out there called Hush, about alien manipulation and deep state deceit. I'm a former combat pilot in the Marines and flew in Desert Storm. Also after getting out of the military, went into writing screenplays and wrote and directed in Hollywood, and then finally moved into writing Hush. So there you go.
That's incredible, man, and it's a pretty powerful cover, I would say. It is interesting, and the combat would have been pretty intense, right? Like that is I respect soldiers so much. Like, and it's funny, my grandfather tried to kind of push me into the military, but you'd be surprised. Like at that young age, I was already aware of like how they use people as cannon fodder to, for the globalist wars, to pretty much control people and. It's controlling money flow in certain areas. We see what's happening all around the world right now, even. And I think my grandpa just wanted me to have some discipline because he came from that like generation, right? But I have such respect because there's a lot of people that lay their life on the line for what they perceive as like freedom for their people and their country. And then usually everyone seems to find out that, it was a lie. It was just for certain countries to take more power and control. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like how you kind of got into it? How young were you? Like when you joined the military and stuff?
Sure. So I got out of the University of Arkansas with a history degree. I was 21, standard exit college age, and went right into flying for the Marines, which meant going through Navy flight training. So Pensacola, Florida. I was subsequently selected for jet training, and then once I went to Beeville, Texas for intermediate and advanced jet training, which in the Marines and Navy means you're learning to land on aircraft carriers because that's what you're going to be doing out in your gun squadron. So after doing that, I was then selected to fly A-6 Intruders, which was an all-weather attack jet. That jet has now been mothballed for the two-seat F-18, but in the era of 1991, when the first Operation Desert Storm went off, that jet was a pretty kind of a sledgehammer in the sense of it can go in all weather conditions. You don't have to see out of the cockpit to, so to speak, attack a target. So I flew missions every night of the war. And to kind of close a little bit about combat and kind of how this led to me writing Hush. Mm-hmm. I also at that time was the intelligence officer for the squadron. So when you're in an attack squadron in the Marines, you also have other billets, like you might be the maintenance officer for a while or the admin officer. In my case, during the 1991 Persian Gulf conflict, I was in Operation Desert Storm. I was the intelligence officer for the squadron. So I was not only flying missions, but I was also in the secure room each day reading the top secret traffic worldwide that was coming in for my squadron, but also for everyone everywhere. So basically I'm reading all of the worldwide top secret traffic. And At the same time, I'm going to the mess hall where the officers are eating, and I'm watching CNN. And what occurred for me was it appeared to me from 3 different antennae. The antenna I had of flying actual missions, where I knew we were not searching for weapons of mass destruction. And then I'm reading the top secret traffic, and none of that had to do with weapons of mass destruction. And then I'm watching CNN, and they're saying, oh, we're over there because of weapons of mass destruction. So I just had the sense at that moment in time that there has to be a bigger mechanism that is twisting the screws here. It's not the American government. It's not the British government. I just had a sense that there was something bigger operating at a more secret level that was really operating the conflict and making it go, that the media was being controlled, that the missions that we were on had nothing to do with what the media was saying. So that's what led to me eventually being fascinated with covert events in our history, because I started to realize, well, maybe Roswell and all that stuff did happen, and that's all a big hoodwink. And hence I wrote.
Yeah, and it is interesting, right? Because it's like you start to weed through and see the bigger picture a lot of times. Like I was fairly young, and I just think it was the music I was listening to and the stuff that inspired me. But once you start to look out and zoom out from what is the actual conflict or things that are happening in the world, it starts to make sense. Like I've always said that like both world wars were funded by both sides, and there's implications of who was involved and why they're involved, and all those little like facets of information that most people don't really want to question, right? And I think it's good to ask questions and to figure out like why these things happen. They changed the world forever, especially the Great War and then World War II. It changed everything. I've been very much into history, and I gotta say, flying a fighter would be like crazy, just because like that I've never done it, but I've talked to people who have, and it's probably a rush, It's like probably get you going.
It certainly gets your blood pumping, especially when they're shooting at you and you're attacking a target. It's a little bit next level, but you're exactly right about history. The funding of wars by both sides is accurate, and unfortunately that continues to this moment. So you're on track with understanding the bigger picture there.
The whole problem, reaction, solution, right? You create the problem and you invoke the reaction that you need to solve the solution that you like literally created for the problem. And it's nuts that people don't see it, but did you, while you were flying around, did you see anything? Did you pick up any, UFOs, or now they call them UAPs? Like, did you catch anything?
No, that wasn't. So in Operation Desert Storm, I was just concentrated on surviving, because there's 100%. Stuff coming up at you, and I'm flying at night and I can see ground fire coming up on every mission. Yeah. So my goal, my roommate actually got shot down and was a prisoner of war. My roommate that was that went through flight training with me in Pensacola, Russell Sanborn, he eventually became a Marine general of all things. He's the only guy I know that made it to general, but he was in my early training squadron in Pensacola, and he was shot down in a Harrier on the first few days of Desert Storm, and then became a prisoner of war there for the 43-day war, and then
that's crazy.
Went on to. So my job was, obviously for myself, was, yes, I need to do the mission and I'd like to survive. So that's
your whole
pretty much what I was focused on.
Yeah, 100%. Because you need to think about it. Like, you're not just like, if you're in the middle of like combat in a war, you're like hyper focused on what you're doing to survive, right? That's like your adrenaline, everything is wired just to make sure that you survive. And I couldn't imagine what that was like. And, when you started getting into this stuff, is there a specific, like they call it the rabbit hole, but like a avenue that you went down that you first were like, I was interested in like ghosts and Ouija boards when I was like 13. That's what really like made me question like the reality we existed. But what drove your interest initially to like look into this stuff?
That's a great question. So as I was reading the top secret traffic worldwide, not just for my squadron, I had a sense that something else was occurring at the same time. There was a sense that there were alien type of reactions or trading going on worldwide. I just had a sense of they're mentioning things here that where they can't quite mention them, but they're not making any sense. And I had a sense like something is being hidden here. And so I just kind of kept that in the background of my mind. Once I got out of the military, I was in for a total of 8 years, which is one tour for a pilot that you have to stay in longer than just the 3 years because they've spent so much money on you to teach you how to fly. So you're committed to 8 years. But once I got out, I went into LA to do screenwriting, which is what I did. And then eventually writing and directing shows. And during that time, I started to look more and more into covert events like Roswell. And then because of my sources, not only military, but otherwise, I started to understand that, Roswell did happen, and we do have crashed alien ships, and we are reverse engineering them, and S4 is a real place. And, Bob Lazar's story is correct, and a lot of other folks who have stepped forward to kind of realize tragically, like, all of this is what's actually our reality. So
do you think Phil Schneider was on point? Like, do you think that? Yeah. Yeah. He was someone that I've discovered fairly young, and his story is fascinating. That they discovered essentially like an underground base of like aliens, right? Essentially, what we classify as interdimensional beings, and people like him, even William Cooper, and I don't agree with everything William Cooper said, but those people that initially started to see through this veil that they've casted over the mass population of what was really going on. And It is interesting because do you believe, I want to get to the Roswell stuff maybe a little bit, but so do you believe that it's possible that Eisenhower was the one that like started initially that was trading the technology? Because there's that theory that they were giving up human beings for technology. Like, well, yeah, you can do your experimentation, you can do your abductions, as long as you provide us with essentially like technology that we can reverse engineer. Or was it more or less them finding it and reverse engineering it themselves? Like, is there both, or is it one or the other?
So you're right on target with understanding the history and the question of whether Eisenhower was the one who signed the Greada Treaty. No, It was signed behind his back by the Majestic 12. All of that stuff, all of the details you're talking about, including Dulce, which is the deep underground base there below the Archuleta Mesa in northern New Mexico, the state of New Mexico. All of that is not only there and real, but it's described pretty in detail in Hush, so you can certainly read it. And a lot of the stuff that you're talking about with Eisenhower, all of the stuff from Roswell forward, the book is basically your covert history from about 1940 through Roswell, and certainly Eisenhower is in the story. And what you'll find is that even though I write fiction, because I find that if a story is fun to read, people will read it. And then if they want to look behind the curtain a little bit and realize, oh my God, this is fanatically researched. Like, what if I'm talking about Eisenhower in an armed convoy at Roswell, it's because I know positively he was there. So you'll find that my research is kind of fanatical. My friends will tell you, like, stay away from that guy when he's researching, because I go hardcore into the rabbit hole and I take it from oblique angles until I've actually can see a picture or a scene of what's occurring from that covert event, and then I can actually write it. But until I have enough witnesses and enough information from all different angles for, let's say, Roswell, I can't even write that scene or that chapter. So I think it'll be a fun read for you. And it's also audible as well.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. And even my co-host, he's from Ireland, one of them, and he was always like, I'm surprised you haven't written a book or done. And I was like, I've always thought about it, but like, it needs to be the proper time. I'm still young. I got time. And it is interesting to write it in that way, because I've always said, like, there's Jupiter Ascending, which they could have done a little better. But I've always said that if they could do a really good reptilian movie about the reptilian and like in detail and have it where it's almost like a horror movie movie, so to speak. There is so much potential there that no one has like taken, and even maybe like there's some books about it, but not really what I'm kind of thinking about. And it's interesting once you're able to take information. And there's people throughout history, H.G. Wells and others, that have like been able to persuade, even like, George Orwell, right? You create a fictional story, but there's so much truth overlaying inside of it. Now it's almost like we're living in 1984 to some extent. But another question, I got a bajillion going on in my head, but do you think that the initial contact in Roswell, do you think that it was intentional that it happened, or was it a mistake? Like this idea of trading technology and essentially having deals with interdimensional beings from outside of our reality, was it this thing that was like accidental, or was it more of an intentional thing?
No, nothing was a mistake. So you have to remember that in 1947, Roswell is the only nuclear base on the planet, in the world, anywhere, no other nukes anywhere. Just think about that for a second. Mm-hmm. So if you're an alien race, and 2 years before in 1945, the humans have set off a nuclear bomb, think Trinity test, think Oppenheimer, and that nuclear explosion sent shockwaves not only off the planet, but throughout the galaxy, right? You're talking about affecting weather systems on other planets, and suddenly the ET races that are out there are like, okay, what have the humans done? They've gotten a hold of a firecracker. They have no idea how powerful it is and what to do with it. And now they're messing with blowing up their own planet because they don't know what they have. So let's go investigate. So Roswell, during the months, even right after the Trinity blast started, because Roswell is just the Trinity site. So you're talking about the only nuclear base in the world, and the aliens suddenly start probing with ships, which are flying over the little town of Roswell, to the extent that the local residents are like, okay, we're seeing these things dart around. There's just volumes of documentation of residents going, we were watching these little ships going every which way, and they would do right angle turns and this, that, and the other, and they were all silent, and it was day and night all around the Roswell base. And every time we tried to tell the Army, because at that time it was Walker Army Airfield before it became Roswell, and during that time when they tried to tell the guys at the base, because of the Truman administration clamping down on anything to do with alien traded technology or anything to do with the Russians, they basically said, just tell them that they're either seeing things or that it's just Russian reconnaissance. Because literally the Truman administration prior to Roswell had no idea what those ships were. They just knew that they couldn't shoot them down. They couldn't track them. They couldn't stop them. And the Truman administration was aware, like, look, we're not in control of the skies above us. This is not a good look. We don't want America to know about this. And so it became that environment that by the time the ships, in this case, on the weekend of July 7th, 1947, on a Friday like 4th of July, you have a ship come down in the plains of San Augustine, which is about 250 miles to the west of Roswell, but it's still considered a Roswell event. And you can look up the Gerald Anderson video where he's being interviewed by Stanton Friedman. That's a fascinating video, because at the time, Gerald Anderson was a 6-year-old kid, and he's like, we came around the corner looking for cool rocks because my dad was a amateur archaeologist, and we see this disc sticking out of the arroyo ahead of us, and we went right up to it, and there was one live alien, one very injured, almost dead alien, and 2 dead ones right next to it, and they were all basically 4 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet tall, and we went up to try to talk to him, and then other people started to arrive. All of that is documented, but it's also documented in the Majestic documents. I mean, there's just so much volumes of information, eyewitnesses that were there that were threatened with their lives, et cetera, et cetera.
I couldn't imagine I couldn't imagine that feeling of like, oh shit, like when you see the crash ship and you actually see like a personnel within inside the ship, you'd be like, it's such a wild story. And like, I want to get it back to it, but just I quickly to interject, did they were aware of this because of stuff like the Battle of Los Angeles, right? Where they tried to shoot something down, or what do you think about that?
So that's a good question. So you're talking about 1942 now versus 1947. So 1942, this is the Battle of Los Angeles, to remind your readers, is just a bunch of ships over LA. There were 1,300 rounds that came up from the Army gunners at the time trying to shoot these things down. We ended up shooting 2 of those down. One crash landed in San Bernardino, and one landed off the coast. Both were picked up. There were a total of 7 dead aliens on both of those ships.
I didn't know that.
So, and prior to that, 1941, you have the Cape Girardeau incident. So I'll just tell you this, in the novel, all of that stuff is covered. So you'll get a really good sequence all the way through Roswell. So you'll have details that will be fun for you to read. And finally, I'll just tell you, Tom, because you're a reptilian guy, all your reptilian stuff is covered in the novel. Because it all kind of kicked off with the Nazis making a deal with reptilians to go to Antarctica in exchange for some things the reptilians wanted. And that was before the war even ended.
And that's what's crazy too, because obviously now it's just people are starting to question what side of the war and all that stuff. But if you could look into they were channeling the Vril and a lot of that strange occult practices, there's a lot of people now that are trying to claim that that Adolf was somehow the good guy fighting against the globalists. And I've always pointed he's probably a paid opposition because you see this all over the internet now. I know you're not really on social media, but a lot of people are starting to be well, what was the other side then? Why were they doing this? What was the purpose of it? But we looked into the Vril and some of that stuff and just the whole Madame Blavatsky thing, and it's all connected to this very dark occult. And then if you are I've messed around with the occult when I was younger and stuff like that. And if you invoke something, you might have something come out of that from other dimensions and stuff like that. I went from using the Ouija board when I was young, where it was telling me it was just ghosts and dead people, to when I got older and started to understand this stuff. After my aunt, she used to live in Jamaica, told me not to use it, and then I used it on my own and started telling me that it was actually interdimensional beings that were contacting me through this board. It freaked me out. I haven't used it in a long time, but it makes you think, about what these things actually can do. And it is interesting because I've heard that they were trading technology, and they definitely went to Antarctica for some reason. They had boring machines there, when the Nazis went there. There's and then obviously Operation High Jump and all that stuff. But it's interesting when you zoom out and start to try to understand what was actually going on. And that's why I'm wanting to bring up the Battle of LA, because I didn't know that. Maybe I heard that 2 ships crashed, but I thought that there was one. They couldn't penetrate it. It sat there in the sky. I think they even hit people with ricochet fires, just a crazy whole event that I couldn't imagine for the people that lived at that time or around at that time in that area. It would have been completely intense. But it's just interesting how it starts to add up, and especially in the sequence of events of maybe they had foreknowledge of what was coming in the wars and stuff like that also. Because do you think that they've been paying attention to us, the Greys, the reptilians, and maybe your thoughts on Palladians, if there is a benevolent races also, of how long have they really been paying attention to us, or have they been thinking that we're some sort of the ants that, they don't really pay attention to us?
Okay, so those are really good questions, and I'll give you both barrels here.
Yeah.
The reptilians, the Greys, the blondes, all of them were here long before we evolved on the planet. So again, all of it's covered in the novel. It will cover all of that. It's basically a linear track of how we came into negotiations with aliens, with alien traded technologies. I will give you a hint if you want to read about the deep past, where reptilians first interacted with the planet, you can get a book called The Dark Fleet. It's a great book, and it's literally taking you back to Atlantis, that type of deal. But Hush will certainly take you from about 1940, where we had our first interactions off of Saipan, where a ship came down, where it was triangulated by our newest radars. That tends to mess with pilots of what's called living conveyances, meaning these ships are not flown with the stick. They're flown by the ET pilots putting their hands in hand forms within the ship, and then their brainwave connected to the ship. But if they are hit with three different radars, it tends to mess them up. We learned this over time.
Interesting.
And it brings the ships down. The first one came down off the island of Saipan near Tinian, and that was our very first test of our new radars prior to the war. So all of it kind of makes sense when you start to, and that ship was probing to understand what the radar was, and then it got triangulated and basically crashed in the ocean and it was recovered. That was our first off-continent recovery. Our first on-continent recovery, meaning at least in America, was the Cape Girardeau crash in 1941. Again, all of that stuff you can check out. You can get the Audible as well to listen to it. It's a 600-page novel, so it's a lot, but it really does cover all of those events, so you kind of have a sense of how it all came around.
Okay, sorry.
Did I?
Yeah, it's just I got the new mouse, and if you click one button, it shoots you.
Okay.
So dumb. And as you were like, you can continue, but I was just going to ask too, like, is any of the Roswell footage and any of the images like that? Because I've seen them when I was. Are any of them actually real? Because there's some of the
So if you,
photos and stuff.
So if you go to mdselig.com, which is my website, it will give you a link to my Patreon page, and you can actually watch the first contact event. I have the video there. I also sent the alien autopsy footage in to have it colorized, and of all things, it comes out that alien is a burnt orange colored alien. When it comes out, I didn't do the colorization. This is Kodak that does it. Mm-hmm. And what's wild is it was well known that there were two types of alien species from three different ships. One were the grays, which kind of looked like clones of each other, but there were also the oranges. Michael Cruvant Wolf, who worked at S4, talked about, the other thing that a lot of people don't understand is the other group, the other race of ETs that crash landed at Roswell, we called them oranges because they kind of had an ashen orange color to them. On the autopsy video, you will see that the exact same alien that's in the contact video, where you're going to see them brought in on litters, where there's 5 dead aliens and 1 live one being brought in front of Colonel Blanchard at Roswell on July 7th at 1700 hours, meaning at 5 p.m. For a viewing, where they're bringing these 5 aliens that have just crash landed in for his staff to view. And the stretchers are being put down. You can watch that video and you'll realize, oh, that's the exact same 6-fingered alien with the leg wound that's then in the autopsy video, orange alien.
And he looks similar to Grays, right?
They are a little bit bigger than Grays, and they don't have the wraparound eyes like Grays have. They have more of a circular eye. They're a little bit bigger, a little bit more human looking. They do kind of have a slit for a mouth, but they have actual ears, and you'll see the difference right away.
The Grays, right? It's such a fascinating thing to me because this is like one of my paranormal was my first love. My second love was aliens. I started getting this stuff. I was like 16, 17, and it was down huge rabbit holes and watching a lot of David Icke and stuff like that, right? And is the Grays, because we've heard all these different stories, just from your point of view and what you've researched, are the Grays like and like almost like a cyborg animatronic, like kind of like being that is not real, like synthetic, or are they actually like real beings? Because I know we've heard that they can't reproduce, so they're produced in some sort of like laboratory, you could say, so to speak, cloning. And are they? Because I've heard all sorts of different stories, but are they controlled by the reptilians? Because there's viewpoints that some of them are, some of them went rogue. What is your point of view of like what the Grays actually are and who they are, maybe?
Sure. So the Grays in this case, most people refer to the Zeta Reticuli coming out of a star system where you have the tall Grays, which are about 7 feet tall, very skinny. They are biological beings. Generally, the small Grays, which we kind of call the helpers, those can be, and most times are, clones. The majority of them are male clones, some are female, but they basically act the same, and they are generally in abduction scenarios used to hold down or to bring out the human from their house, because when they are taken for an abduction, they can literally be molecularly dissipated to go through walls into a bedroom, grab the human, and then them and the human are literally from the ship molecularly dissipated to be brought back to the ship. The operations are done, whether it's on the ship or, and the abduction takes place. And then, you hear about the same person being abducted over and over. That's generally what's occurring in that place, in that space. But the Greys have their own agenda of domination of the planet, as well as the reptilians. The reptilians just happen to be the bigger bully in the ring. They're more powerful than the Greys. They have a little bit stronger telepathic ability than the Greys, and they're more psychotic in the sense of they're kind of known world conquerors across the multiverse. But the Greys and the Blondes, this is another group that a lot of people don't talk about. Those three groups have been competing for control of the planet, from my sources, from my best study, for 240 million years. So long before we evolved on the planet, they knew we were going to evolve. You've heard of looking glass technology, where they can look at different timelines. They can look ahead. They knew we were about to evolve. We humans are cast from kind of the best of about 25 to 30 of the best benevolent races in the multiverse.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
So what happened with these groups, like the reptilians, is they realized, okay, these humans, when they step into what they are, they're going to be way more powerful than we are, which is true. And that's what's occurring right now. That's why they're kind of on the run now. The planet's shifting. But they foresaw that when the humans evolve, they're going to be too powerful to deal with as they expand out into the galaxy. Let's see if we can control them. Hence, they were here before we literally evolved on the planet, and they were part of the progenitors. In other words, reptilians, Greys, Blondes were all living here, interbreeding with us to create hybrids so that they could eventually control humanity. Their experiment, fortunately for us, didn't work. And what's occurring right now is humans are finally stepping forward into what we are, which is love, which is this super powerful thing that, people will say that's woo-woo. I'll tell you this. Love is the absolute superpower in the multiverse, and everyone knows it. Like, when you come with love, not touchable. It's what created all of it, right? And we just happen to be endowed with this massive capacity. And that's what's occurring right now. Why the type of disclosure that is coming, the contacted events that are coming in 2026, it's coming now because of compression, because it's been something that's been forecast to arrive, and it's this year, Tom. So you're here for the right time.
That's crazy. I always think that is like, if there's could be so many times in history where you could be, and I really see a lot of the negative aspects, especially when you go down some rabbit holes of, what these people in power are capable of and what they're doing to like children and stuff. And I think that it all relates back to this of what's going on of consuming our energy and maybe these beings from outside of our eyesight. And it is interesting because I would like to know, I got another million questions in my head, but like someone I really respected and liked and awakened me, and now I can't use woke because it sounds dumb, but like, is Alex Collier. Were you aware of him? Because he really put out information in like the early 90s that most people weren't.
I'm a huge fan of Alex's.
He did some crazy work.
Alex is the real deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alex
and some of the aspects of like the details that he gives about the reptilians, it's almost like if he was making this up, he would be the greatest storyteller. It's like
no, he's not pulling any punches. He's telling you like it is. It's just that when he delivers that type of stuff, and it's certainly covered in hush, the really dark stuff with kids and stuff I won't go into here.
Yeah, it's almost like when you go into those rabbit holes because you're like, it's fucked up.
Yeah, it's rough, but in my opinion, and I think in Alex's opinion, and that's why he puts that out.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a writer like me, so for him to just say it is kind of his venue of letting you know what's going on. I put it in a fictional story, but the details of what's occurring within that darkness are the actual details that I've researched, that I know about, including Alex's stories of what he's seen visually hanging out with the Andromedans. I'm just saying that he's trying to tell the world, this is what you're up against.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't move forward in truth until you understand what your actual reality might be, even if it's dark. You have to understand, you have to have a starting point. And so that's what I like about Alex, is he's willing to say, I'm going to tell you something today that's extremely dark. Take it or leave it if you think it's real or not, but I'm trying to tell you what your actual reality might be. So that's what I really like about Alex, is he's willing to stand up and go, I don't care if you believe it or not. This is what I know to be true. And I love that.
Yeah, and it's hard because you see a lot of the division and stuff like that. And I don't know, people that like listen and watch my show could claim that I push that, but I've only tried to show people what is actually going on and why it's happening, like from what's going on in the world with the wars and you know, mass immigration, all those little things that people are now paying attention to. That's like, oh, I see my home being destroyed, right? And it's all going back to the same thing, I believe, of you know, they need to control us. They need division. So they need to like constantly pit people against each other that are different religions, different ideologies. And, you know, this technocracy that could be coming, it should be alarming to a lot of people of the total control they could have over our lives. And I've always like hoped like that there would be some sort of beings out there that are benevolent, or I used to like, it's just so embarrassing. I used to like smoke cigarettes, and when I was like 17, I look up at the sky, listen to people like Alex Collier, like, you know, William Cooper, and I would like think about like, why do I think about these things and nobody else around me does? Like, I felt like not special, but like I felt different in the fact that like
you felt isolated though.
Yeah, that I was paying attention and aware of these things that other people were not, right? And
right.
I want to get to some other stuff first, but like so there's this theory that like the reptilians already existed on this planet and that they went underground and they're still there, a couple thousand. And then I just want to touch upon the point of like, is that's what this whole biblical stuff is about too with the Anunnaki, is actually it was just the Anunnaki were also the Nephilim, this idea of beings coming down and mating with the people of Earth. Like this already happened in our history. And is it true that there is benevolent reptilians, or are they all just malevolent? Because I've heard different sides.
So that's a really good question. It's important to understand that reptilians are a species like humans.
Mm-hmm.
And within humans, we have a faction we could call the Nazis, which you and I might agree might not be our best representation of humanity, right?
Yeah.
That we might say those are kind of the thugs, or maybe we could say the American East Coast Mafia is kind of the thugs of humanity.
Or communists. Right? I'm not a fan of communism at all.
Right. But I think what you have to understand is reptilians, there are many
mm-hmm.
races within the reptilian species. One of those races, the Draco reptilian, is the dark force that is here that has tried to take over the planet. And I want you to also understand right now, all around you, within us, on the planet, honeycombed within the planet and outside the planet, it's a 95 to 5% ratio, meaning there's 95% benevolent aliens here watching this all unfold. We have a lot of help. It's going to be fine. It's not a dark future. It's actually a pretty exciting year. It's going to get a little rough, but if you just use your heart, not your head, when you're kind of trying to understand what's happening, just use your heart, let it discern, let your head be kind of the interpreter of this. And I'm telling people, as much as you can, take 5 minutes out of your day and turn your technology off. Open your heart, see what's there. You're going to find that your superpower is here. It comes from love. And when the crazy events start to occur this year, to where we have perhaps a contact event or stuff occurring around you where you realize, okay, we are absolutely not alone. There is other people here from other planets, other species, other races here, welcoming us into the galactic community. You'll need to use your heart to discern who the good and the bad are, because they can present.
Just like me.
They can present.
Like
Right. So what I'm saying is, to get back to your question,
Mm-hmm.
there's many, many reptilian races, and one of them that is here that lives below the crust of the earth. They're supposedly some of the wisest, most wonderful. They want humanity to flourish. That's not the group that is the malevolent group, like the reptilians, the grays, the Maitra, the blondes. Those are the groups that for millennia now have wanted to control the planet for themselves, to the extent that they will clone themselves so a blonde will disguise themselves as a gray to infiltrate the grays, and a gray will disguise himself as a reptilian, and vice versa. The reptilians will disguise themselves as grays or as blondes, literally to attack their enemy without their enemy. So that's how intense it is. And these groups are and certainly they can take over a human avatar. You might be talking to a reptilian right now. I'm just saying, if they have the technology to come here from intergalactic space, do you think they have the technology to take over an avatar? Yes, they do.
Yeah,
So
well, it's
I'm
like the
just
whole royal family, like, bloodline.
There you go. Now you're really on it. That's good, Tom. So what I'm getting at, all of that is covered in Hush. So it'll kind of give you a bigger general picture of what might be your actual past up to this moment. But I'm just saying that this year is an exciting time to be alive on the planet. Good things are coming. It's a really exciting future for humanity. But I'm just saying, start using your heart. Turn off CNN. Don't surf on Facebook or Instagram. I'm saying turn it off. Take 5 minutes. Light a little sage. Open your heart and watch what happens. All I can tell you is there will be molecular changes. And the final thing I'll say, all of the benevolent groups that are here all around us and within us who will present, they communicate from here, not from here. So if you're trying to sit and get quiet with your brain, it's just going to spin. Let this go, open this, watch what happens.
Yeah, you give me chills. I've had these weird feelings since I was a kid about, like, I always joke about, like, the cracking egg thing, where someone pretends to crack an egg on your head and you feel like this rushing, like, we saw psychics at an alien conference. He was a hypnosis and his son was like a psychic, and they were telling us stuff that there's no way they would have known about me and my wife. And I would get in the weird. He's like, you ever get like a weird feeling on the back of your neck? And I was like, it's all time. And they could be guessing, we don't know, but like some of the information they knew was quite compelling. And that's why I'm like, I have to be hopeful. I don't want to descend in some sort of communist technocracy, especially in Canada, because that's where I am, and it's pretty bad here in what they're trying to impose onto the people. And like, I have a 7-month-old baby, and I don't want to see her grow up in some sort of communist hellhole. So like, I'm really hoping that there is positive changes. Like, I do see that they're wanting to push for some sort of like conflict between different races and different religions. And the story as old as time is to divide and conquer people and then take total control, right? And I would like to get to what you see coming. I don't know how much time you have left, but like also because I want to do aliens on Sunday with my co-host, and I was like, this is getting me really into it again. And I have an episode written out about the Palladians and how like they could be positive beings, but I've also heard that the reptilians can infiltrate, and people think that they're being contacted by a beautiful blonde-haired lady, maybe like Adolf did, or some of the Nazis, right? And meanwhile, it's some sort of demonic reptilian being that has infiltrated and maybe even avatared them to some extent, because that is quite possible if they have the technology. What in the point of view of more of the positive benevolent beings, is there any ones that you can like pinpoint that maybe people have heard of, or are the Palladians more positive? Because I know some people that are super in like psychic work and awesome. And this one lady will send me like videos of like, or it's the YouTube video of them saying how they're getting ready for contact. And I'm always like, it interests me when I was younger, but now I'm like, is this real? Are they trying to contact us, and are they here? And are there different benevolent kind of beings that are like helping us along with this?
Sure. So just remember, there's trillions of races, trillions of species just in our galaxy. And the ones that are here are far too many to name, the ones that are watching this unfold. So I'm going to get back to what I think is really important here. You know, you mentioned I want to make sure that it's not a reptilian trying to transition, or how can I know, and blah, blah, blah. Like I said, I think the most important thing humans can do, especially this year, is literally take a breath, step back from technology. Don't try to figure out what your brain spins on, because that's exactly what they want you to do. The malevolent groups want you to continue spinning so you don't go to your superpower, because that's what they're fearing. They're fearing you stepping into your power. So with your daughter, you have nothing to fear, but you'll have nothing to fear much more confidently if you'll turn off the news, if you'll get quiet with your daughter there. Have that time and that space to see what you are. You're a multi-dimensional being that hasn't quite remembered it yet, but you're about to.
The love, that capacity that she has gave me. I've never felt love like that before, of loving someone. It's crazy.
Right. So now you can step into that for yourself, whether your daughter gives it to you or not. As you step into that for yourself, that's where you can then give it and bring it to, onto your podcast, and to help people to understand that as it gets more chaotic in this year, because it always gets rougher before it gets better, try to encourage folks, don't go for the mind control. Don't go for the spin on CNN. Don't go for what's on Facebook and all of the fear. Do get quiet and light some sage and open your heart. Do find out what you are and who you are and how powerful you are when you step forward with love, right? And then all of a sudden you're changing to a critical mass what's coming anyway, which is us stepping in. And what happens is, in that frequency, when we're bringing that frequency, literally the malevolent groups that are here can't physically stay on the planet. So that's the best thing that you can do. And that when you are presented with different races who are in front of you, it could be any number of races or species. If you just kind of sort of say hello or communicate with them as they do with you, and you're communicating from your heart, you will absolutely know this one feels right to me and that one feels fake, even though they're putting off this heavenly feeling. This is what you have to step forward with, and you're fine, right?
And it is interesting, because like I've always heard that you gotta come from a place of love, and there is a lot of like I had this like conflicting feeling of like should you hate evil? Because if it's evil, it should be hated. But then it's like you got to come from a place of love, and they are trying to really pit people against each other, especially people of different like cultures and stuff like that. And I see this happening a lot in Canada, where it's like I'm losing my home. Essentially, it feels like that, losing my culture, and I think the part of that too. I do think that of love for your own people is not hatred for others or wanting to prevail, but like at the end of the day, like I've made this clear on videos that have gone viral and stuff like that. It's like that they're coming after all of us in the end. They're just using these specific people for this right now, and then these specific people for this right now. Like, it's the Palestinians, it's the Jews, it's the Muslims, it's all being done and manufactured, I truly believe. Do you have any predictions, or at least like what you're feeling is coming this year? Because everyone's obviously is supposedly, it's 4 years before 2030, and that agenda, they already tried Agenda 21. Like they keep pushing the goalpost to essentially, in my view, enslave humanity. We're already enslaved by like a fake paper fiat currency that they can just print out of thin air and then tell you its value, right? So with the AI and this technology that's coming, they think, at least from their point of view, from what I can see, these elites or these parasites, they believe that they can actually bring about this whole technocracy of control. Where do you see us going? If you want to wrap it at an hour, we can do that. But like, where do you see it's going? And if you want to maybe brief some people on some of the history of maybe disclosure, the thoughts of like where we're headed and where we were before, type of thing.
Sure. So that's kind of two different questions of as far as where we're headed, and then also the disclosure thing. So I'll cover the disclosure thing first. You're not going to have them open, on 8th Street, the Alien Museum, and say, hey, this is the American and Canadian Congress, and come on down. We've got some reverse engineered ships that we got at Roswell, and we got some dead and live aliens. Come on into the museum. It's all here. We just want to show it to you. There's no agenda for that. So if you're Lockheed Martin and you've been reverse engineering alien craft since 1947, then what incentive, if you're making trillions, not only on the planet, but off the planet, and every other military contractor worldwide, this is not the American government, this is not the Canadian government or the British government, this is way above that. This is military contractors who get paid trillions to reverse engineer in secret. They have no incentive to step forward and tell humanity, oh, you know what, America, we're really sorry. But yeah, we've been doing this for, 50, 70 years. There's no agenda for it, right? They make too much money to care less about any human whatsoever. And you have to remember that's not just Lockheed Martin. That is thousands of military contractors worldwide who work on compartmentalized stuff. They don't even know what they're working on. And what they're really working on is a piece of a spaceship that will be assembled in space and is used in our current fleets that are out in space, not only in the galaxy, but intergalactic. And we've been out there for decades.
Like cell phones, right? They gave us cell phones, right? I would assume.
So, so you're not going to have disclosure from any congressperson or anything like that. That's not going to happen. That's just what we call limited hangout. What you can do, once again, is like you've done, study. You can read Hush. You can understand the timeline of covert events to understand how it got to where it is today. And then to realize, all right, there's enough information online. I can see a bunch of people see UFOs, and there's clearly extraterrestrials all around us and within the planet and off the planet. And they're around us right now for this transition. You can do that research. It's available. There's enough information now worldwide that you can start to get a sense of, oh, wow, there has been a secret space program. And there's many individuals who've been in that program talking now, saying these are the same bases that I was on at Diego Garcia and this, that, and the other, and it's a spaceport. And we used it for years coming back from series and this, that, and the other. I'm just saying there's tons of material for you to look at if you're interested in that.
Do you know who Paul Hellyer is? The defense minister. Yeah, he literally said he was aware of 5 different races of beings that were in contact with us. And he said this like in a government facility. Like I don't think it was Parliament, but it was something adjacent to that. And he believed it. He sure sounded like it,
Yeah, there's many more, but I'll just give you a hint that all of that stuff is available to you. And then the second part of your question of where do I see it heading? It's a very bright future for all of us because we are literally this year going to be welcomed into the galactic community, meaning everyone's going to be aware that, oh my goodness, we've been in space and there are alien races that we are in contractual obligations with and have been for decades. That's going to come out this year in various ways. It may sound a little scary. There's nothing to be scared of. Again, use your superpower. Listen from this. Turn off the news. Just at least take 5 minutes a day to get away from all technology. Come back to who you are. Try to remember who you are, which means kind of understanding that you're way beyond what you've been told. You're in the third density right now where you and I can see each other, but you have the capability to move through many dimensions and frequencies, meaning that you are literally capable of multidimensional communication, travel. I know it seems woo-woo, but all of the alien races, from the secret space program personnel who deal with them to abductees who have dealt with them, all of the folks who are in contact, including Alex Collier, will flat out say humans are considered royalty in the multiverse because of our capabilities. And I'm telling you, it's not just some, it's all humans. You have these capabilities. So I'm just saying, try to take this year to tap in, and when events start getting crazy in the news, turn it off and use your heart to understand and be discerning, and you'll be fine. There's nothing to fear. It's an exciting time just ahead for all of us.
And even to close this out on this whole idea, right, that they faked the moon landing, because the footage that we got is not what it actually is, right? What do you think that they did that on purpose? Obviously, right? Like, there's the theory, they got to beat the Russians, so they gave us like some, which even who would they accuse of doing it? Kubrick, and even his daughter was like, yeah, he would have done it way better or whatever, right? Like, did they do that? Like, showed footage like that because they didn't really want to tell us what was up there? Because I've heard like the moon is like a space station, or it's a satellite, or it's like that it's like equal ground that other beings can go there and nobody is to mess with each other. And just the idea of the moon, maybe to end this on. What do you think about the moon and what it is, like in the theories about it?
So here's both barrels again. We have a Lunar Operations Command on the backside of the moon. The backside of the moon is littered with bases, not only American bases, but from many other countries.
Did the Nazis have a base on the moon?
Did the Nazis what? Yeah, their very first base off-world was in the shape of a swastika on the moon. That's what I heard.
Didn't they? There's like joke that they made it into a square because people didn't want to work.
So the moon was literally dragged here by the reptilians. If you go back into Hopi literature, you'll find there used to be no moon. And they talk about the time before the moon was in the sky. It was literally dragged here as a frequency expander. The moon is hollow. And I will tell you this, the landings on the moon are real. And what you can find out about those landings, if you find out about the radio calls that were made from the actual astronauts who are saying, we're looking up here, and on the edge of the crater are these huge ships with these creatures below them, and those were the reptilians literally looking at the final guys that were on the moon saying, get your rocks. So this was picked up by ham operators who were listening in, get your rocks, get on your ships, and don't come back. That was the reptilians on the moon letting America know, like, no, not again. And that's why the moon missions ended. Yeah, so I'm just saying that, but all of the secret space program personnel talk about being at the Lunar Operations Command, going through mind wipe, going through prep to go to Mars, which the Nazis control Mars. So all of it is in hush. You'll get to kind of follow the trajectory, but the moon itself is, unfortunately for me, it was always my muse. I always loved it, thought it was an organic, alive planet, until over time I realized, it doesn't rotate. And all planets, all moons rotate around their mother star, their mother planet, and ours doesn't. And then I started to realize, that might not be organic. And then the more information I got, I realized, okay, the CIA has had a Lunar Operations Command there since the late 50s and early 60s. The Nazis were there before the end of the war. So I'm just saying that it's not what you think it is. But like I said, it's all coming out this year. You're going to get a lot of information that comes out, and you can be prepared for it. It's nothing to be scared of.
That's awesome. One last thing before I let you go. The way that they communicate, right? The reptilians, a lot of these interdimensional beings, is it more of a psychic level, or do they have the ability to like speak our languages and stuff?
No, it's telepathic. So with the Greys, and so whatever, they're basically talking to what is your language center in your brain. And if you're German, you're going to hear German. You're going to hear your own voice in your head as if you're saying it to yourself, but it's them communicating with you. And that's standard for all telepathy throughout the multiverse, is those entities or ETs that are communicating with you using telepathy, because that's what all reptilian species do. They don't have vocal cords. In fact, they want to hear you sing because that's something they're excited about. I know it's a weird little thing, but they like it when humans sing because they can't. But one of the fascinating things is when they want to communicate with you, it has to be through telepathy. Hence, they're millions of years older than us as a species. And those races within the reptilian species, there's so many of them. And like I said, only a very tiny faction, kind of like our Nazis, are the really rough ones called the Draco reptilians. But when you're communicated, even with benevolent races who are here, benevolent ETs, it will be in your own voice, and they're just basically communicating to your communication center within your brain. So you're going to be able to understand the imagery and the emotion that comes through instantaneously. It's like the
Could they
quickest way.
be talking to us more often than people think? Because there's the idea that, like, are your thoughts your own, or are they just dropped into your head? Because, like, people, there'll be people that are like, oh, why did I think that? I don't know why I thought that. Is it a possibility that they, at this point, have been either some people or all people communicating with them telepathically throughout the years that they've been watching over us?
So certainly, like I say, go back to this, because this will know what's from outside of you and what's from inside of you, right? This is your amazing superpower, and it won't lead you astray. Having said that, certain individuals, because of the frequency that they're on, the way they've kind of evolved, some of us are a little bit different frequency, so that some of the ET races will tend to pick an individual because they think that individual is more prepared for their vibrational frequency. So that individual may get some messages, but I think over time, all humans, if they're kind of in the right space, will know when it's from outside and when it's from inside.
It's fascinating. Now I'm definitely gonna have to. I want to cover the Palladians on Sunday now, because it's just some of the stuff is just like we jump around so often to like really dark conspiracies to like, true crime and stuff. And this has always been one of my favorite things, is that I've always really hoped that this is possible, and that I felt weird things throughout my whole life and had weird experiences. Like I had a very scary shadow person experience when I was like 19, and it was very real. And it proved to me that, the reality is not as real as we think it is. These things felt like they were consuming my soul. Like it was very real. I was sober, wide awake, and it just proved to me more that there is something outside of our eyesight. And I really hope that all the people I've talked to, like you and stuff like that, are corrected, and I hope that we're heading towards this place where we get to evolve and be part of something bigger than what we are now. And I have so many other questions, but we can always, maybe eventually I'll try to get you on the show again, and we can keep it to an hour or whatever, just for you, because I'm assuming you're a busy guy. But for all the hose heads, as we call our fans, because we're Canadian out there, and all the people that are watching, listening, obviously support the show. But tell them where they can find you.
Sure. So they can get the book at mdselig.com. It's on all the regular outlets, Amazon and stuff. It's on Audible. And so the links to all of the stuff that I'm working on are there at mdselig.com. And certainly if you read the book or listen to it, please give us a review, because that gets the message out in a wider deal because of the algorithms. But it's been an honor to be on your show, Tom.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm gonna get the book, because I have a huge book collection, and I'm just now I'm not in it yet, but I'm building a new studio and stuff like that for the show. So I want to be able to display some of these books, and it would be an honor to have your book on the shelf and stuff like that. It would be really cool. And I have a lot of alien books, but I feel like I need to get more. I have a lot of like history stuff. I need more.
You absolutely need more alien books, Tom.
Yeah, it's such a subject to me. So everybody,
and just so you know, the final thing, the new phrase as you're moving forward is ETs, because alien means opposed or opposite.
Yeah. Yes.
And so you want to start using ETs. It's kind of the politically correct thing in the multiverse. You can certainly say aliens if it's the malevolent groups, but try to start using ETs.
Beings.
I have to. Just extraterrestrials. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I've always said interdimensional, because it's just like, and it's just because everyone knows the phrase aliens, right? So it's like this generic thing. But no, that's it. All the contactees and all the stuff that I've seen and researched, a lot of people do claim ETs. One last thing before I let you go. Stephen Greer, is he on point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, he's an interesting dude. He's very genuine, it seems. So and Grush and stuff like that. So very interesting. I appreciate having you on, everyone. Support the show, obviously. Go get Hush. I'm definitely going to get it. Support independent writers and thinkers and shows and all that stuff. Obviously, guys know you can support us on Patreon. You can buy merch. Just make sure to give the show 5-star rating reviews, all that good stuff. And until next time, stay strange.